Why would you post stuff that is the average of everything online and expect outstanding results? Posting about generic stuff that anyone can Google will only take them so far. You have to be your own media company. Nobody's going to know you exist unless you produce content and you do that consistently. You don't have to be building a business to have a strong personal brand presence, because opportunities are much more likely to come your way if people know you exist and if they know that you're really good at what you do. You've never met them, but it feels like you know them. And this is exactly what social media can do for you. People become more familiar with you faster, and familiarity breeds trust. Simple.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Zsike Peter. Zsike, welcome.
Very well pronounced. Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you heard me practicing 14 times to get it right. But yeah, also, I'm so excited to have you here because my childishness is excited to say I get to do an interview with a vampire.
In broad daylight. I got out of my coffin just for you, Fred. So special occasion.
Oh, I feel massively honoured. We better explain what on earth we're on about before people go, what all these pair on? Tell me about the vampire thing, or tell us about the vampire thing.
Although before I go into that, I appreciate that you're very on brand with the blood red shirt you're wearing. So thank you. Noted. Your life shall be spared.
Not too attractive, I hope.
You're at a safe distance. So why the vampire angle? So I was born and raised in Transylvania, and moved to the UK about 530 years ago. But no, I was really born in Romania. Transylvania is one of the largest provinces of Romania. But by ethnicity, I'm half Hungarian, half Romanian. So half of my childhood was spent in Transylvania, Romania. Then my mother escaped through the border during the Ceausescu regime. Eventually, she ended up kidnapping us from our father. So that was an interesting story. And so from the age of 12 to 19, my sisters and I, with mum, lived in Hungary. And then at 19, I bought a one-way ticket to the UK. And the rest is history, as they say.
You're here. So there's the sort of the vampire personal side, but it's your professional side as well. You're a professional vampire.
Yes, right.
Not a private one, a professional vampire. No, so tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I made a whole business out of this because when I first started out as a freelancer, everybody was calling themselves social media manager or copywriter, and they still do. And there's more and more of us as people have access to the internet, they learn, they go on an online course for 2 weeks and they call themselves a social media expert and so on. I just wanted to stand out and sound different. And I remember going to a local networking group here in Bristol. And at the time I was retraining, studying for my digital marketing degree. And I said, I'm going to be setting up a business. I'm thinking about calling it something to do with vampires. And everyone, apart from one guy, told me it was a silly idea and nobody will take me seriously. And that one guy, I'll never forget. So he used to be a copywriter at the time. He was a will writer. And he was like, go all in, go in with all the vampire puns and bad dad jokes. People will love you for it. So I thought I listened to that one crazy guy, and I went all in, and it did work. Yeah. Now I'm more grown up about it, but at the beginning it was a bit silly, and yeah, very much.
That's just the evolution, isn't it? That's just sort of doing something, being drastically different, and then finding your way into that and how it can actually work. But if you don't try something, if you don't do something different, you are going to get lost in a sea of sameness, I think.
That's the thing. If you are following the trends and trying to catch up with your competitors, you're always going to be 10 steps behind. So if you play it safe, if you're playing by their rules, and I'm not saying, you have to be this crazy, outlandish type of person with a ridiculous brand just for the sake of it. There has to be substance behind the fun, the silliness. But yeah, if you're playing it safe, then it's going to take a lot longer to build a brand, build your business, get noticed by the right people, right? So, and you might as well go all in with your personality, because then you end up attracting the kind of people you like working with rather than the corporate Collins.
And I think it's fair to say that that applies to somebody who is working for a company, for a bigger organization. So I know sometimes they're a bit scared to do that. So companies do kind of boring things to be the same. They try to be the same as as everyone else, and it's like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And the larger the company, the more they try to police their employees' LinkedIn presence, and to the point where, I mean, I know one of my sisters used to work for a large corporate where they actually, or it was part of their contract that they wanted to have access to each employee's LinkedIn profile, so they would cross post whatever they wanted through their employees' profiles. So they literally owned their employees' profiles, which is ridiculous. I remember years later when my sister then decided to join LinkedIn, she had to beg them to have her access back to her own LinkedIn profile, where she had thousands of people in her network already. She didn't want to start from scratch, but she didn't know the password to her own account. So yeah, some corporates
Oh,
take it to the extremes, and it's ridiculous, because if your company culture is that great, you shouldn't have anything to worry about, right?
it's a classic. I hear this. I mean, I work with salespeople, and it's like, well, why aren't you doing that stuff? It's like, they don't trust us to what we're going to post. It's like, but they trust you to go out and talk to clients. They pay you to get in a car, get on a plane, get on the
Mm.
phone, and go and talk to people on your own. But you're not allowed to put things out. Oh, well, that's public. Like, well,
Mm.
I'd be more of what you're saying in private, to be honest.
Yeah,
If you don't trust somebody, you just don't trust them, full stop.
yeah.
So, and train them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really shocking. But yeah, even I think in fact, if you empower and train your employees how to take advantage of LinkedIn and take and use all its functionalities, it can actually really help that company if individuals are given that freedom to, if you want, you can add like views on my own, whatever. But on the whole, you shouldn't, as a company owner, you should be encouraging your employees really, because that can only people buy from people they like, not from company logos. Company pages don't perform the same way in terms of brand recognition, in terms of earning the trust of your audience and closing that trust gap. It's always going to be down to people, not company logos and LinkedIn company pages.
It is, and it's an easy jump to make in that if you feel as though you have to employ salespeople, it's because you need them having conversations with customers,
Mm,
ideally making sense or helping them make sense. So
yeah.
you want to be into that conversation with your reputation enhanced as somebody that looks as though they can do that,
Mm.
which you can do before people meet you by being interesting on LinkedIn, which is like talking about what the customer's interested in, or just
Yeah.
the stuff that you do that might be a bit different.
Yeah.
Your hobbies. I mean, oh, it's big turning to Facebook. Well, no, because that's what you would talk about when you're walking to the meeting and having a coffee or whatever. So
Yeah, absolutely. This is what I don't understand. Like, these companies are on LinkedIn and they're just reposting boring blog posts with external links, which doesn't do anything for their company profiles, doesn't do anything for the CEO who's reposting the same beige nonsense that, we're delighted to announce that we won another award that we paid to enter for. It does nothing for their brand building or earning their audience's trust. So why don't you uh, encourage employee advocacy for your company and trust them that they will do a good job if they like working there?
what do you mean by a blog post? A post that's as boring as a block, or that it's
No,
just a
no, no,
massive
blog,
blog attack?
blog,
Oh, blog. So I thought you said
blog.
block.
So a lot of companies will just repost their blog
Oh, sorry, blog.
posts
No,
from their
we've invented
website.
something. A block post. It's a
Blog
massive block of
wall.
text that's as interesting as a
True.
building block.
Yeah.
There
Let's
we go.
watch paint dry. Exactly.
Creativity lives here.
Mm,
Um, and that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Because at the moment you're writing a lot around creativity, but also with the angle of AI.
mm.
Um, Tell me your opinion on this.
Ooh, how long have we got?
14-hour podcast this is going to be.
Oh, I mean, this is a good way to get, make my blood boil, but I'm passionate about all this. And the reason I took a complete U-turn on this because when ChatGPT and all the large language models came out over 2 years ago, I thought, okay, I have a content marketing agency. I need to know, I need to have a finger on the pulse, to speak in vampire terms. And it's better to devil you know, because AI could be a threat to my business. Not AI on its own, but people who get really good at AI. So I thought, well, I need to get really good at AI. So I went all in. I started using large language chat GPT, Claude. I've tested them all. We started even testing client avatars. So training custom GPTs for client to teach to train it to learn clients' tone of voice, style of writing based on the posts we've written for them. And there was so much work involved afterwards to edit them. And we thought, well, we're going to be efficient. It's going to be saving us time. I tried them for myself, didn't quite feel like me. And towards the end of last summer, I thought this is ridiculous. I'm so sick of this. And a few times where I would just write off the cuff, those posts would always perform better. So I just stopped it. Just stopped it with any client work that we were doing. We just completely eliminated, other than the research process. So when we onboarded clients, we would research their target audience. Like I would feed in all the information, all the client intel that we gathered during the onboarding without any names, just to get an idea of what's happening in the market. For that part, AI is great for
Mhm.
accessing information through ChatGPT instead of wading your way through endless links on Google and you're not getting to the right information. You can find that much quicker through ChatGPT. Obviously, you need to fact check. ChatGPT can hallucinate and come up with nonsense, but on the whole, it does speed up that process. But when it comes to, I mean, why would you post stuff that is the average of everything online and expect outstanding results? It's not going to happen. And if you have to edit so much to then make that piece of content outstanding, then why start with crap? Let's be honest, because it's really
Mm.
difficult to polish a turd, as the saying goes. So, and the problem is now 90% of everything that's online right now has been produced in the last 2 years. 90% of everything that's on the internet today has been dumped on the internet in the last 2 years. That's thanks to large language models. That's thanks to AI. And that's shocking. So what's happening? AI is then going back out, picking the average of all the average rubbish that's there, and it's diluting it even more. So it's getting worse and worse. And one of the other things I've noticed, well, I used to write really quickly. But since relying on ChatGPT, those thinking muscles, those kind of creative thinking and writing muscles have slowed down. It took me a while to get back on the horse. So I started doing some research around this. And yes, there are some research at university where scientists have been looking at the effect that AI has on how students are performing, what they're doing for their studies, and they're gathering their research, how they're writing their exam papers, and so on. And yes, so this is now proven scientifically that their cognitive critical thinking skills and abilities to find the right information, draw conclusions, find nuanced connections between data and information they gather has been massively affected in a very negative way compared to how they used to do all that work before large language models were made available to the public. And that's shocking.
It is. I mean, I remember reading some stuff quite a bit ago, which was even saying if you take notes
Mm.
straight into a computer, you're bypassing your brain. You're not really listening. You're not making sense of it. Whereas if you're taking notes with pen and pencil, uh,
Yeah.
you have to think about what it is you're writing. So it is doing you benefit and doing the whole neuron connection thing, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're saying, well, actually, we've got something which is bypassing it even further. It's going nowhere near your brain.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
somebody
So that,
else's brain onto your paper, and it like you're pretending you know stuff, and you just don't.
yeah. So,
You just
so
don't.
like you said, yeah, that neuroplasticity that
That's what I was
humans,
looking for.
right? I've done my homework.
Neurony thing.
Yes, that neuroplasticity that we works wonderfully for humans when you're literally creating, your brain is creating those new synapses through doing the same thing from different angles, from analyzing information over and over. And it's also the act of writing is slower. And the way your brain registers that is just, it's much deeper, like you said, that compared to typing it out. And now we just click a button. You don't even have to type in the question anymore. You can just record, you just give it your voice instruction. So, I mean, where does this end? All in the name of speed and efficiency. So it's volume now over quality. But that volume means that the few people who are producing quality are getting drowned in it, and it's becoming harder to get noticed. The flip side of this, of course, is cream always rises to the top. So those people who remain true to themselves, who practice the human art of creating, it will become more apparent for them to get noticed, because quality people will still pay for quality, just like there are, you can buy the cheapest clothes from Shein, that the massive Chinese fast fashion manufacturer, or you can go to Savile Row and have a bespoke suit made. People who have the money will not be buying from Shein, and this is cheap, fast content. Those who can afford to buy for quality, and those are my clients. I don't want to work with people who want to pay for fast fashion, fast content that does nothing for their brand. In fact, it will damage their brand, therefore it will damage my reputation as a professional.
Yeah, it's interesting when you said where does it all end? Again, I've got my sales hat on, and I'm thinking in a right mess.
Mm,
And where I see the mess coming is that it's sort of like I remember when ChatGPT first came out, and you couldn't then move on LinkedIn for carousels. There were people who've never said anything before and now putting 40, 50, 60 pages worth of information that they're training you on. And you thought, I don't reckon you know that stuff. It's all
mm,
very good because it's only just swipe it. It's there. It's on LinkedIn. I'm thinking, okay, what if it worked? I suppose I was kind of come a call on you with you. Well, come into my office and talk to me about this. You just can't. You don't actually know that thing.
yeah,
That's why I think it's going to be a massive mess.
yeah. And
Different
that's
if
the
you're
other
using it for
giveaway.
resource, but yeah, it's for research. Sorry. So yeah, God, those times that was crazy, wasn't
And that's the other giveaway. If you never see those people talk on video or being interviewed, in this setting on a podcast, if you never hear or see them talk, if you only ever see written content for them, that's for me. If they consider themselves, they class themselves as an expert in their field, then for me, that's a red flag. Because if you are an expert, why aren't you talking to anyone? Why aren't you building your business in various multimedia forms? You don't have to, not everyone is great on camera, I get it. But to not even because you can build this trust much faster. And when it comes to sales, right, that trust is so hard to earn but very quick to break. And I that this is what AI content does, because people won't be engaging with that content. That's one of the issues we can tell now, because everybody has tried ChatGPT, right? So they know what it looks like when ChatGPT spits nonsense out at you. We know what it looks like, we know what it sounds like, and I cringe when I see somebody who I've admired and respected. There are a few large LinkedIn creators doing this. And I just can no longer take them seriously. It's such a shame.
See, actually, I'll challenge you a little bit on that. because
Okay.
I think if somebody doesn't know their stuff, you ask ChatGPT something and it spews out all this stuff and it looks quite convincing. That's pretty good, that. Hey, oh, I use
Mm.
all of that. On you go. I'm not talking about them with all
Yeah.
the emojis and all that sort of thing on, but then you sort of look at it and think, well, that's not quite right, or you probably didn't write that, or
Mm.
just that's a bit boring. Um,
That's
because the
fine,
person
but
doesn't know. I mean, I've put stuff in about, well, not myself, but kind of my area of specialty come back. Oh, yeah, kind
mm,
of reasonable, but
yeah,
hmm,
starting point.
yeah,
A
yeah,
starting point. But the thing is, those people will very quickly get found out because posting about generic stuff that anyone can Google will only take them so far. And literally, ChatGPT isn't taking that information from other experts who have shared all their methods and all the steps of the implementation. That's not really, you could piece it together if you know what you're looking for. But if you're not knowledgeable in that field, you won't be able to prompt ChatGPT asking it the right questions to give you the right
yeah,
information in the first place, right? And then, okay, well, let's say based on your posts, you get a client because the client is under the impression that you can do what you say you can do. Well, you'll very quickly get found out if you can't implement all that stuff because there has to be a lot more substance behind sharing generic content. That sounds okay on the surface of it.
yeah. I think it would be fair then to say that what we can do. So if I'm going to paraphrase this, it's like we
Mm,
want to be more human. Show your, which is ironic considering how we kicked
mm,
off the podcast. But anyway, we want to be more human. Um, and so to do that, don't rely on the machines. Use the machines to help you get information, research stuff, maybe
mm,
even develop some perspectives, get some insights. That's what I would encourage salespeople to do, because you
yeah.
can crunch a lot of stuff.
Mm,
But then we want that human perspective, that angle that you bring to it, an opinion.
mm,
Yeah, that's where we start to stand apart. And some people might not like that opinion. Brilliant.
mm,
Some people might
mm.
love it. Even better. That's how I think we're going. I don't know. Am I getting that right? Do I
Well,
need
you're
to
right.
adjust my approach?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on because no AI large language model will have your lived experiences. So when you're talking about a specific way you help your clients, for example, AI isn't going to have that information about you. So in your that's how you can differentiate yourself in your content, that if you have a strong opinion that's not something that people just googled, or if you have done something in a specific way and you add your personal stories in there, that's clearly not I mean, and you can start off with AI in terms of ideation, in terms of asking it to organize your thoughts, right? So sometimes people make the mistake of talking about too many things in one post. What I would do, right? So that happens. It
Hands up for
happens to
that.
me too. Happens to me too. And I think I'm not. I feel like I'm going off on a tangent here. So I'm going to just dump this into ChatGPT to say, right, what's the main point I'm trying to make here, and remove the others. That's going to be another post. And then it does that for me. Like, okay, now I take what this is the main idea. This is the outcome I want to achieve with this post. Take that offline and then write it. So that with that, fine, use it because it will speed up your, making sense of things. But also, I would say sometimes you want to do the hard slog of analyzing your brain dumps yourself because 2 years ago we never had access to this. Yes, yet people still manage to produce content. Now I know not everybody is a natural writer, and we can't be good at all the things when you have your speciality, you have your business to run, and so on. And if you can't afford to work with a marketing agency, a copywriter, then chat GPT, to start you off with, to give you ideas, great. It's better than not doing anything, of course, but you can't just copy and paste what it does, what it gives you, because it's just so damaging and nobody's going to take them seriously when people do that.
Yeah. I like the idea, what you're saying there about ideation, speeding up, making sense of things.
Mm,
I mean, that's why
yeah.
people work with salespeople, because that's their job.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, you've got to be able to do that to yourself.
Mm,
Otherwise, you're gonna be sat in a room and you could
yeah.
get embarrassed quite quickly. Um, but yeah, using it to, I mean, I do the same. I've created Fred AI fed it 3 books, said,
mm,
"You're me." And then I've asked it
mm.
stuff and it's come back way cleverer than me, which is kind of a bit weird. But then, yeah, when it's come back, so I'm not going to post that because doesn't sound like me,
Mm.
but I can make that idea that
Yeah,
I sort of had. I know it's getting quite
yeah,
confusing now of who I am into something that is a
yeah,
point I'm trying to make.
yeah, yeah. I completely get that. And that is, this is what I would call an ethical use of AI in terms of using it as a tool to enhance your creativity. But it's like where do you draw the line? That's really difficult to say because that erosion of your own ability, like how do you, let's say there's a machine that can help you tone your muscles. There are those machines that promise to do that, right? They don't really do it. And people will sit down whilst eating a donut and put all those pads on their abs. That is right. So, and they expect to have washboard abs in like so many weeks. And say you do you do that for a year and then you just don't know how to actually activate those muscles yourself. This is the comparison I'm trying to draw here is
Mm.
if you outsource your even the thing, not just the writing process, but the actual thinking process, all of it to AI in the name of speed and efficiency, well, what if your Wi-Fi doesn't work 1 week or I don't know, apocalypse and no internet across the globe? What's going to happen with all of us? And it's just such a shame. Even if we do have access to all this technology, wouldn't it be such a shame if none of us eventually could strategize or come up with creative ideas that because AI is so linear and always finds the most perfect, it's all very binary and almost perfect with the stuff that spits out at you, but there's nothing exciting about it. So the
Yeah.
exciting ideas are always very human.
You can use it to fire some angles, can't you? So give me these
Yeah.
perspectives. You can ask it to do crazy little bits of
Yeah.
thinking, but then that's because you've asked it, or you remember that. Remember
Yeah.
those days back when if it wasn't if it wasn't carousels of
Mm.
somebody else's information that's been regurgitated, it was use my prompts, steal my
Yeah.
prompts. Well,
Yeah.
not stealing it. You give it me. You just put it there. It's not really stealing it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I hate that phrase.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
overused
cheat
clickbait.
sheet. I don't like that either. Whatever. But it's like, okay, I've done that. What do I do with that now? So I've got
Yeah,
these different angles, which probably don't really make sense to me. Whereas
yeah.
if you've understood how to then take that thinking and use it in a way that's going to be engaging or whatever, that's going to be quite
Mm,
useful, isn't it?
mm. And what's
Um,
interesting as well, looking at, because I've been going down the rabbit hole of all the researching all this for ThinkBait, um, is that over time it tricks your memory. So you begin to think that, oh, I wrote that. It's really confusing. And also there's also automation bias, which is another term that the scientists have or are calling it, is basically when we trust automation, AI automation, so much that we don't think it can make mistakes, and there are errors and mistakes creeping in, and we don't associate those with AI. We think that must be human error in the system. It's not faultless, but we are quick to blame humans in the process within an organization and don't even think that it could have been part of the automation that's gone wrong. Another thing, apparently, chatbots used, on websites where it will have a conversation with a customer about something, and the way some chatbots are set up, they end up manipulating the person to think that they have asked in a certain way or had a conversation. So it changes your memory of what you've just talked about. I'm not explaining this really well because I'm still like in the early stages, but it's quite scary how it can alter your memory of that conversation you just had with it because it's
no, you explained it well. The
yeah,
chatbots learned
yeah,
from unethical sellers.
yeah,
That would be
right.
how I would summarize that. It's like, oh, this is what sales is all about. I need to change people. No.
This is
Can we
why you need
retrain
a
the
human.
bots to do stuff in a decent way? Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
how about we train people to have emotional intelligence and sell with emotional intelligence, right? Like somebody on one of my posts recently suggested, well, leaders with zero emotional intelligence could do with some AI help to recognize how their employees are feeling, how the customers are likely to react. When I thought, well, how about we don't hire leaders who have zero emotional intelligence? They shouldn't be leaders in the first place. And why
No,
don't we get people to get better at this? Why the disconnect? Why? Oh, it's just mind blowing.
automation bias. That's then comes from automation bias, then, isn't it? Which is, oh,
Yeah,
that don't work.
because we
Get
think
the
it's going to
AI
be
to do
better.
it. Well, why not get another
Exactly.
person to help that person be a better person? But
Yeah,
would be the
exactly.
obvious answer. Yeah, you're a bit old-fashioned, Fred. Bloody Gen X with you. No, yeah, it's true. I'd love to know. I might put you on the spot here. The I wrote that. There must be a technical expression for that. I suppose it's like a human hallucination, isn't it? Like the AI's
Mm.
hallucinated, and then you end up hallucinating back that hallucination was your original content, and you kind of live in this
Yeah, so
cuckoo land.
it's a little bit, I can liken to the fact. So apparently, when you say you're on a holiday or at an event, and if you focus on taking photos and videos, and then you look back months later, you're not going to remember actual moments. Your memories will be formed just by your videos and photos. And anything else, because you weren't quite living in the moment, you were focusing on taking the next perfect photo of your meal that you're having on holiday or sitting by the pool. So that's a thing. It's affecting when you're focusing on technology, it affects your memory in that moment because your focus is elsewhere and your subconscious isn't registering what it should be registering and actually registering the fact that you are on holiday having fun. The same goes for maybe not the best comparison actually. This goes more with the altering your memory. So the chatbot example that I mentioned is that the way it's automated and the questions, when you ask questions and it answers you in a certain way to steer you in a certain direction, it's very manipulative and it's very algorithm based. And there's been research done that people who have had regular contact with these chatbots, that their memory of those conversations are completely different and skewed in the favor of the outcome that company wants, with as opposed to what that customer contacted the company in the first place. And that's scary.
Now you're absolutely in my sweet spot because now we're getting unethical. If
Mm,
we're manipulating people and we're not supporting their decision making and giving them the information for them to do that
yeah,
without pressure and everything else, and we are asking machines to do stuff in
yeah.
that way, oh,
Yeah,
that
and
is
this is happening already. So there are large corporate organizations using monitor AI monitoring tools when looking at tones of email from like say employees who might be disgruntled about something, who might be teeing themselves up for leaving because they're not feeling valued by the company and so on. And these AI systems are then advising the leaders like, right, do this, say that, so that basically you manipulate them, staying put, not asking for that pay rise, not complaining, etc., etc. Like this is unethical.
we don't see. I think I saw you right about that the other day.
Mm.
We don't see those ones published so much and promoted so much, do we?
No, but
Um,
this is already going on. It's not apparently it's not even new, and I didn't know about this.
I know about conversation intelligence and sort of having almost like a heads-up display. We could be having a
Yeah,
conversation here. I could have sentiment analysis going on. I could be having some other stuff about any about
that's it.
questions I've asked, talk
Yeah,
ratios. Could even actually have it if I programmed it in the right way, telling me what questions to ask next.
right.
Well, clearly
Okay.
I
So
haven't.
if you think about it, if you
You can
think
tell by
right,
that, can't you?
yeah. But if you think about it now, this can completely manipulate. Say if this is a customer complaining about something, insurance company or whatever, and that person is not having to use their empathetic skills, their human skills to have a normal human conversation, and an AI is reading into the nuance, the tone, and all that. It's fine as long as you use it to help that customer. But when you use it to exploit that customer in favor of your large organization, let's be honest, insurance companies aren't going to be using it to help their customers. Then where's the line? And the ethical element here is really important. And the legislation, so looking at government legislation for AI implementation and the AI tech development, the UK has taken a very similar stance compared to the US, and that's innovation focused, which is fine, but the self-policing is what's happening at the moment with these tech founders. So there's not going to be any sort of very stringent regulations until there are some specific cases where, oh, look what's happened, and that this is definitely due to AI tech interference. Whilst the EU, for example, are going hardcore with their legislation and allowing the innovation to happen a bit slower so that they can control what's happening in the public domain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel as though we need to go into a different podcast completely on this, because well, no, it is such an interesting area, and we're at such an interesting point in time. Talking about time, I can't believe where it's gone.
Gosh, yeah.
Let's pull it back then. Let's pull it back into sort of someone's listening to this. They're a salesperson or kind of a business owner, somebody who is LinkedIn. I mean, that's your area of specialty, using LinkedIn, and they want to get the most out of it by showing they're a real person, showing they're a human. I think that's what we're saying. That's a smart move. Couple of things that they can do to get a couple of quick wins, to rise above all the mediocrity, creep close to the top, and kind of, yeah, look, I'm a real. Yeah, what can they do?
So, I mean, first of all, you were saying, whether it's salespeople or they business owners, everybody in a way are selling their services or themselves. Whether you're there to do business or there to raise your profile because you want to be headhunted, you are selling something. You're selling yourself or you're selling your services. So everybody is doing sales one way or another. You have to be your own media company, right? So, and that then involves content production, right? Because nobody's going to know you exist unless you produce content and you do that consistently, right? Just because, but then looking at quick wins is your LinkedIn profile should quickly communicate who you are, what you're about, and what you want people, what steps you want them to take when they look at your profile. So, if you're a business owner, then what's the transformation? What's the outcome you're promising? And who is it for? And obviously, if you are, so to give you an example, we have one of our recent clients. She's employed. She doesn't want to start her own business. She's employed as a consultant in a company, but she wants to raise her profile and produce regular content so that she could potentially get noticed by headhunters and given a better opportunity 2 years down the road, right? So that's her goal. So even if you're employed, having a solid personal brand, and I know that's such an overused term because every guru and their cousins, cats, neighbors, whatever is using personal brand as their favorite thing that they're really good at. But that is the term for it, right? That you don't have to be building a business to have a strong personal brand presence, because opportunities are much more likely to come your way if people know you exist and if they know that you're really good at what you do. So that's the quick win is you might want to build a business later down the road. It's going to be so much easier when you have built an audience that already knows and trusts you. It's just to be consistent. It doesn't have to be perfect. Although don't post volume for the sake of posting nonsense, right? It's just be you, show what you're really good at, and do that twice a week. It doesn't have to be over complicated. 2 short posts a week to keep that consistent and your profile being very obvious in terms of what you do, who you do it for. And that's the easiest way to kind of slowly build up a presence.
I prefer that. Building up a presence.
Yeah.
Salespeople hate personal branding as a term. So I talk about reputation enhancement. Yeah, same thing. But
same thing, yeah.
Just reframed. You want to be seen as the go-to person. You know your stuff, and you look like a decent person to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
On an individual personal level. So
yeah, and how do people get to know the fact? Like, so think about this. You come across someone on Facebook who's a friend of your friend, and you're like, oh, they look interesting. You look through their profile, you browse through about 20 photos, fine. 2 weeks later, you're invited to a barbecue. You see that person in a gun, you think they look really familiar. I recognize them. You've never met them, but it feels like you know them. And this is exactly what social media can do for you. If you show up regularly and not just with written content, but I post all the selfies shamelessly, and I hate having to do it, but it works.
It's a
One,
game.
it
A game.
stops the scroll because we are hardwired to look at faces. And two, it builds trust. Familiarity, people become more familiar with you faster, and familiarity breeds trust. Simple.
It's so funny. People who kind of call that out as, they don't understand. They are missing a point of human psychology, which is this is what
Exactly.
we're designed to respond to, whether
Exactly.
it's pure selfie or selfie with an orange hat on.
Yeah, exactly. Or like quick video. That's where you show you're not AI.
That's a moving selfie,
A moving selfie.
which is, but you're delivering to camera, which is showing that, hey, I know this stuff. Or
Exactly.
even if I've just memorized 60 seconds worth of stuff, normally it means you can know more. But we go to another podcast of top tips. But
Yeah.
Zsike,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on. Um, got a pretty good idea where people could find you, but I'm going to ask you anyway so that we can let people know.
Yeah, of course. I'm surprise, surprise, I'm all over LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn.
Never.
You never would have guessed, would you? I live on LinkedIn, and I'm ramping up content more, and I'm going in deeper with all the think bait stuff because of my book. So which I have to drop that in there quickly. My book, the first book that I'm ever attempting to write. So yeah, that's where people can find me and argue with me about AI.
You'll have to come back when the book's out and talk again.
That's
Will you do
fine.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
When
I
you're on
will do.
promo, will I get a look in when you're on full promo tour?
Yes. I'm
Ah,
getting some interesting people reaching out to me, like people who are academic researchers in the AI field saying, I've been worried about this for a long time. I'm willing to give you a quote from the research that I'm doing. And yeah,
oh,
there's some really interesting people talking to me in the DMs. The book is going to be juicy.
proof in the point of what we're
Yes.
saying because you put yourself out there and position yourself as this. So I'll drop a link to well, I can't put the book in yet, but I can put a link to your LinkedIn profile in
Yeah.
the show notes. And look, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thinking.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for quizzing me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.